The only thing more frustrating than falling apart every time you make a position shift is not knowing how to fix it. During my teaching career, I've seen hundreds of self-taught bass players avoid learning to position shift because they don't know what to focus on. So in this video, I'm going to show you an easy position shifting technique that will help you move up and down the neck with total confidence. The hardest part of learning this technique from a mass market YouTube video like this one is knowing what you personally need to focus on. Parts of this technique might click, other parts might not, and that can leave you feeling a little bit like you don't really know where to start. So before we go further in this lesson, I want to show you my free bass technique bot, which is going to help you connect the dots between all the things you don't understand and help you figure out what you need to focus on to build this technique. So it's linked down below and you can get it completely for free by filling out a short survey. And it's trained on all the YouTube scripts from my bass technique lessons. So you can go in and ask it a question like, I want to learn position shifting, but I'm not sure what to focus on. Then it will ask you some questions about yourself and what you're struggling with, what you find easy or hard. Then it will diagnose what you're doing wrong and tell you what to focus on. You can pick that up for free in the description below. It's a great companion to these lessons if certain elements of them don't click. And don't worry, none of your survey responses are used to train the AI. So now you've got the technique bot to help keep you on track. You're actually in the perfect place to learn this position shifting technique. So this is actually something I learned by making a really common mistake. This is something I go deeper into in my technique workshop that's also linked below. But the long and short of it is, I used to watch great bass players all the time move around the neck really quickly and really fluently. They'd go from position to position with complete ease, and I assumed that because it was their hands that were moving, the technique was all in their hands. However, when I tried to play this way, I sounded awful. My hands stayed really tense, I couldn't leave one position and get to the next one smoothly, and I couldn't figure out what was going wrong. And it wasn't until several years later that I picked up one small bit of knowledge that made everything click. I learned that the best way to do position shifts isn't actually with your hands, it's with your arms. Let me show you what I mean. So obviously our hands are connected to our arms, and that means that our hands are slaves to the arms. In simple talk, this means that if our arms move around like this, our hands will move with them as part of that same movement. Now this might not seem like much, but this tiny little piece of information translates perfectly to the bass when we're trying to learn position shifting. Instead of trying to make your hands do these massive leaps around the fretboard, instead, you want to focus on using your elbows. They can perform a small rotating movement like this, which moves the hand without requiring any of the muscles that control the hand or finger to move. So if you're playing and you want to jump from one position up to another, you actually want the shifting motion to originate in your elbow. So specifically, focus on rotating your elbow slightly like this, which then allows your hand to make the jump. And then you can think about that rotation activating the forearm, which then kind of transports your hand further up or further down the neck, all the while not engaging the hand muscles so they stay nice and relaxed and loose. However, this isn't all there is to know with this technique. In fact, if you were to now try and use this technique to execute every single position shift in your playing, it would be another mistake that creates a lot of tension, ruins your playing, and could even cause an injury. So to help you avoid all that, next I'm going to show you exactly when and when not to use this technique to play great bass lines. So when I first learnt this technique, I typically got overexcited and tried to use it absolutely everywhere that I could. But before long, I actually noticed I was getting quite a lot of tension and some pain in my left shoulder. And the reason was I wasn't using this technique in the right way or at the right time. But this taught me a really important lesson about exactly how to apply this technique. And if you do want to incorporate smooth position shifts into your playing, this absolutely is what you need to focus on. So as bass players, we like to think about technique as being one perfect way of doing everything that will never change. But the truth is, fretting hand technique is much more like having a toolbox of really specific tools that you have to use at really specific times. And the reason why I was experiencing discomfort is because I was trying to use this elbow shifting tool for completely the wrong job. For example, if you try and use this technique to execute really big position shifts like this, you'll notice that the elbow ends up moving the hand in a bit of a semicircle. Now at the far end of this rotation curve, this actually takes the hand away from the neck at the low and high ends of the neck. And at the far ends of this rotation curve, you'll notice that your hand is in a really weird position. Your palm is at a really weird angle, your fingers aren't in a good line to play on the neck, and that too is actually quite painful. And the last thing you'll notice about this really excessive rotation is that it does cause a lot of tension and discomfort in your shoulder. So why am I teaching you this? Well, what this means is this particular position shifting technique is not good for large shifts. But for smaller ones, or micro shifts as they're sometimes called, it is incredibly effective. So in terms of when to use this, you want to focus on using this elbow shifting technique when you're doing small position shifts of around 3 to 5 frets. But now you've learnt this, you actually have a new problem. This elbow shifting technique will count for nothing if your fingers are still falling apart and making you sound sloppy after you've made a shift. The good news is there's actually a technique you can learn which pretty much instantly fixes sloppy bass playing. I've actually done a full video breakdown of this technique because it's the next dot you need to connect if you want to build up your technique and use it to play great bass lines. So click up here to watch that video next.